Hello, class, Dr. Gann. Um, I am getting ready to present my presentation on phone supervision of online doctoral students during COVID-19. This is a qualitative case study. The purpose of this study, of this qualitative case study, is to understand and to describe how COVID-19 changed the real world experience of online doctoral students during COVID-19. We're going to look at how their lives changed as far as their interaction with their supervisor. We're going to look at how life changed as it related to family and how it related to them personally, how they felt inside and out concerning what challenges they faced. The research questions for this study kind of flows in the direction that kind of give us an insight. This is a qualitative case study, and so it gives a interview process where we get the each individual's own personal opinion about how they felt during COVID-19. Research question number one is, what is the real world experience of online doctoral students in counseling supervision during COVID-19? So we're going to look at what were their experience, how did those experiences affect them? The number two question is going to be, how did online doctoral students describe the changes in themselves due to less personal interaction? And question number three is going to be, how do online doctoral students describe their experience with telehealth supervision and comparison to counseling supervision? The methodology used in this study was a qualitative case study. And the reason why I decided to use a qualitative case study was because it allowed me to interview the participants on a one-on-one basis. It allowed me to tap into their experiences, their real world experiences, and to extract that rich data from them, from each individual, and to see if those experiences interacted with each other. One of the things that I wanted to be able to do was to let those participants speak in their own words. The researcher, and that being me, wanted to understand each interviewee's experience through a thick, rich description of their experience. Why not use a phenomenology in this particular case? Well, phenomenology looks at the essence. It looks at um, uh, a particular phenomenon. But in this particular case, uh, we want to look at the experiences. We want to be able to understand and describe those experiences. So because of that, a case study fitted the occasion a little bit better. When we start to look at recruiting participants, because I've been in the field for a while, I was able to reach out to colleagues that I've known for years in order to get them to participate in the study. But it was kind of hard because I had to find participants that had been online and that was in a PhD. It was in a PhD at the time during COVID-19. They had to be not only a PhD student during COVID-19, which hadn't received uh, all their credentials, but they had to also be in counselor supervision at the time. And counselor supervision is the hours that you have to occur as a clinician, as a mental health provider, to be able to provide counseling services and diagnosis and treatment services. The number of participants that we had in this study was 4. We were not looking for a particular race nor gender. The colleagues that I used in this study were, like I stated previously, were people that I known for some time. During the data collection part of this study, we decided to reach out first thing via phone, or I decided to reach out via phone to see if I could get volunteers. And once I was able to get people to volunteer, I began to email back and forth with those individuals. And we were using a secure private email to make sure that there were no uh, confidentiality issues. Whenever we decide to send forms back and forth, as I said, we sent those into electronic database, which was our word system. And some of that information actually went to Excel and other locations in the electronic form. This data collection, we also use web sources to talk about the history of COVID-19 and where it started and how it affected our online students that were practicing at the time and going through clinical supervision. The research questions that we used during this study also was a part of our data collection. We used those research questions not only to collect data on or from the participants, but we also used that in our analyzation process, where we looked at those questions and compared the answers, and I was able to gain information from those clients based on those participants based on their response to those questions. We also used the interviews as a part of the collection of the data. And during that process, we went through those interviews. I went through those interviews 3 times so that I could be able to compare what each individual said and those things that stuck out most to me. And then during that process, I was able to get first and second level codes, and I was able to turn those first and second level codes into themes and phrases, which I used later on in my data to reflect what the participants were trying to say. All of that information, as I stated, was stored or is stored in an electronic database. The data analysis process basically began with the interview analysis, going over the data that I received from the participants during the interviews, talking to the participants about the questions that we asked, how did it affect them, what things bothered them the most, how could we do better in the field next time if we have another pandemic. The data provided major findings. We were able to find that a lot of the participants had similar or the same responses to a lot of the questions. They were I found that they were very relatable to one another. And oftentimes they even use the same phrases, which allowed me, as I stated earlier, to produce those codes and those themes. The presentation of my findings, they provided 1 and 2 level codes. The key words that I found in my studies were personal relationship, nonverbal interactions, interpersonal interactions, and trust. Most of the participants, the 4 participants, they trust meant a lot to them. The personal interaction, it meant a lot. They wanted to be able to engage with their supervisor on a level where they felt like they were being heard, or their ideas were being shared, or their expressions were being were being met. But a lot of times they felt that their desires were falling on deaf ears. They felt like the nonverbal part, oftentimes they felt rushed. The nonverbal part, they felt like they asked questions and they didn't get the answers that they felt like they should have got, or there was no answer at all. The personal relationship oftentimes was compared to when they were in person supervision, and then the transition to web and supervision in some cases, and even the telephone supervision in some cases, it felt like they lost that personal relationship as those transitions took place. The phrases and the themes that participant 1, 2, 3, and 4 stated, um, I just want to throw out a few of those things that I was able to pull from the data, just to give you an example of the phrases and the things. Some stated, I don't know what's going to be next. That was a lot. Everyone said, I don't know what's going to be next. It was like they were so amped up about not knowing and wanting the supervisor to provide some answers. But a lot of times, as I said, those questions fell on deaf ears. The second question they all asked was, I didn't get, it didn't seem interpersonal to me. It didn't seem like I'm getting what I'm paying for. It didn't seem like to some of the participants that uh, being at home talking on the telephone with the kids running around, or with them having to go pick someone up from school, or someone in the house being sick, or they could hear what was going on in the supervisor's office over the phone if they were at home. They just felt like they were not getting what they needed. The nonverbal communication was not there. That was repeated over and over again throughout the interviews. And so we found that there were a lot of communication issues. We found out there was a lot of interpersonal issues, and we also found out what it was to be fearful of not knowing what was going to come next. And the last phrase was counseling supervisors accountability. A lot of all 4 participants felt like um, there was not enough accountability coming from the supervisor. They felt like they were putting in a good effort, but they oftentimes felt slighted that the clinical supervisor did not put in the same effort. And finally, the final analysis. All participants shared the same or similar concerns. Um, it was unique in that most of them had those concerns because it showed how uh, counselor supervision and counselor supervisees, regardless of where they were, it seemed like, and my research took place in 3 different states and in 4 different cities. And so it seemed like no matter, and this all took place in the Southeast region. One participant was from Montgomery, Alabama, had 2 in Tennessee, and 1 in New Orleans, Louisiana. So it was almost like no matter what that 600 or 700-mile radius was, it was similar concerns. So I also have a presentation here that kind of shows my first and second level coding process, and how those coding processes brought me to my themes and brought me to my phrases. In conclusion, this research is needed to help the counselor supervision field to better prepare for pandemics or major or catastrophic events. because we need to better learn how to engage. Supervisors have to better engage with the supervisees so that they can remove some of that stress of worrying about if they got it all right, or if they didn't get it all right, if they heard the right thing or didn't hear the right thing. The future research also considered web source where I found that Vaccine Works, which is a research facility, found that in our lifetime, or in a normal lifetime, people have a 38% chance of being involved in another pandemic that would be of the same magnitude or greater magnitude as COVID-19. They also found that a pandemic has a 2% chance of happening daily. So not only is this should be a concern for uh, councils and council supervisees, but for the citizenship as a whole. With that being said, this should be even more reason that everyone should be aboard of this, trying to get this help that we need to support council supervisors and council supervisees as they try to work through what is the best way to serve as supervisees during a pandemic. This research also provided thick, rich description of how online doctoral students were able to use their experiences from school to be able to better help them in a pandemic. A lot of the individuals that were online, they were used to using mechanical or electric resources, such as computers and emailing and talking over the phone, because majority of the time if they talk to their if they talk to their teacher or their professor, most of the time they talk to that professor or teacher via phone or through email. And so those were some reflective things that allow the online doctoral students to be a little bit more, I think, ahead of the curve or ahead of the game versus somebody who was not online, because they already knew how to pivot, how to be flexible. As indicated by the cited responses of these participants, there is much work yet to be done. And I thank you all for listening to my presentation. I have a list of references here that support the information that I spoke about during my presentation. If y'all have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.